and tennis.
How were you? How good were you at tennis?
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
In basketball, we know you were really good.
My unfondest memory is Don Paul, who played professional later on, putting every finger on my right hand out of joint on a pass behind his back.
What was it, a fast? Was it a fast pass to you, or was it a
No,
fast?
it was to somebody else, and I would checked it.
Oh,
But I had all fingers of this hand, so that forced me to become proficient at my left hand.
oh.
So now I could shoot.
So then you became amateur director of shooting.
Yeah, but that was forced on me by Don Paul.
And Don Paul was.
He played for Fife.
Oh,
Then
okay.
later on, he played professional.
Oh,
So
interesting. So his hard pass made you dislocate every finger on
the
your
right hand.
On the right hand, that made you go out and shoot left hand.
yeah,
No IR for you, huh?
no.
It was considering the size of class that you were in, they needed you, huh?
Yeah, anyhow, so that was the fun part. Then I went to college.
Didn't you went from 16 years old? You joined the Navy, right?
No.
Okay.
I went to the University of Washington for 1 year in civil engineering,
Okay.
and I stayed there through two. I think it'd be two semesters or 1 year.
At 16 years old, you went to the university.
At 16, I turned 17
Okay.
September 10th,
Uh-huh.
and I played for Heck Edmondson.
Oh, yeah.
And what did was I was in civil engineering with a guy who had been mustered out of the Coast Guard during the war, and he went by my desk and he says, "Hey, I'm going down and turn out for sports. Why don't you come with me?" So I went down and I turned out for track.
Track.
Right.
Track.
Yeah, I was a distance runner.
Didn't know that.
Oh yeah,
That's the first I've ever
so
heard.
I turned out for track, but Heck Edmondson coached that too,
Oh,
and so also then I fooled around with the basketball, and the next thing I know, that Edmondson said, "You don't need to turn out for track anymore. You're on the basketball squad."
oh,
But in those days, they had a civilian squad for away games, and then a higher toned front for home games.
uh-huh.
So I didn't get to play hardly anything at home, but I did get to play away.
Well, Way would be the better players then.
No, the way would be the civilian players.
Oh,
They could do it. They wouldn't let the people who were in the ROTC and whatever
okay.
go play away. They could only play at home.
Okay, so back up here. So you went to the University of Washington. I didn't know that they had, so they had two squads at the University of Washington?
During the war.
Oh, okay, during the war. Okay,
Yeah.
so what year was this?
Well, that was 1944
1944, okay.
and the spring of 45.
Okay. And so you played on the away team.
Yeah, and
Because
so then I joined the U.S. Navy Reserve and went to Merchant Marine Cadet Academy.
And what year was that?
That was in 45.
45, and how old were you?
I was 17.
Okay.
And so I turned out there and stayed there for, the war was still on, and I stayed there, though, until the war was over. I took two cruises as the war ended.
Uh-huh.
So I didn't physically cruise when the war was on. The war was just barely on, still on, and I had joined in I think it was March or April,
Uh-huh.
and the war ended in September or October.
Oh, so yeah, brief stint during the World War.
So So then I made the 2 cruises, and then the war was over, so the Merchant Marine Cadet Corps had a test for everybody to see whether they could stay in or not. And I passed that easily, and so I went back to Long Island, Kings Point. And I was there, and then I found out that they had not been able to get themselves fully accredited college-wise yet.
Uh-huh.
So I quit them in late spring, went home.
Spring of 45, spring of 46?
46.
Okay.
The war was over then.
Uh-huh.
And I came home, worked a little bit for Dad, and then worked on different farms around the place, doing all the
So
sorts,
you're
all sorts
19
of
years
chores.
old?
No.
18 years old? 20 years old?
That would be 18, I
18
think,
years
at
old?
that
Uh-huh.
time.
Uh-huh.
And then after I found out after I got back to Kings Point that they weren't fully accredited, and so I quit. And then I came home and I worked about 2.5 months on different farms and stuff around, a little bit for Dad, and then joined the Army. I went in the Army at Fort Lewis at Fort Lewis.
Why did you join the Army? You just bored, wanted to go do something back then, or?
No, the Army was still accredited.
Oh, you went to Army to get to school.
I could go to college.
Oh.
I could go to college
On the USA dime.
on the USA dime and not have to answer to Dad.
Oh, see, that's smart.
So I went back to college, but when I went back to college, instead of going into the civil engineering, I went into the College of Forestry and took logging engineering.
Right.
And I stayed there for 4 years, and
And was that at University of Washington?
University of Washington.
Okay, so the Army paid for your.
Oh yeah, the Army paid me, and then I had some other money coming in, and so I was self-sufficient, barely self-sufficient.
I didn't know that the Army basically had a GI Bill back in 46.
You know, they had it for 3 years. All 3 years of my Army, I got paid for the Army $75 a month.
They paid you and paid for schooling, and then when did you ever actually serve active duty with the Army? Where you go overseas?
Oh yeah, as soon as I joined the Army, I was active duty.
Well, you know what I mean.
Then I went back to Fort Dix for basic, and then I went up to the Brooklyn Army base and did repair work on helicopter SX-28 radios, which I still remember the name of.
Wow.
And I stayed there for a while, but I found a guy who had entered the Army around the same time as I did and under the similar circumstances. But I had joined, and I was supposed to be sent overseas, not to the Brooklyn Army base.
Right.
So I wrote one of my many lifetime letters and got them to pull me out of the Brooklyn Army base, and I went over to Camp Kilmer for, I think, about 6 months.
Where's Camp Kilmer?
That was an Army base in New Jersey.
Okay.
And then I found a guy who could take my place there.
You found a guy that would take your place?
Yeah, he was in the Army, but he wasn't doing his best work.
Okay.
Which I was doing radio repair and radio installations.
Uh-huh.
So I found out that there was a deal going to Alaska with the Air Force Construction Battalion.
Uh-huh.
And so they let me join that, and I went over to.
Hold on. So you went from the Army to the Air Force
Well, yeah,
under
but
under the under
well,
the.
yeah, it was still I still had joined as anyhow. I went over to Wyoming where that was being put together, and from Wyoming went up to Alaska, and then Alaska set up all the electronic stuff for that construction battalion. And after I got through doing that, I didn't have much to do, and so they asked for volunteers to go dig up the war dead from the Aleutian War with Japan.
Oof.
And so I volunteered,
Oof.
and off I went to dig up war dead.
No one. That's I would call the lost war of World War II was the Aleutian War.
What do you say, lost?
In terms of it's not well known.
It was not well known. I don't know why it wasn't, but it was. It was a full-fledged war, which Japan won. They won the first two islands. They took over. So we had American dead and we had Japanese dead. So we dug up everything, and we had two ships. One, I was on a smaller ship which had the digging crew, and the larger ship had the doctors and what have you that would disassemble everybody and put them
In the proper order.
in the proper order, and so
so
that worked. We worked our way back to Anchorage.
Being that cold, they must not have been too much decayed.
No, they weren't highly decayed. No.
Because they were in the ground for what, a year, 2
Yeah,
years?
some of them more than a year.
You're lucky it wasn't a
But
hot.
anyhow, they were scattered around through the different islands too, and so
What a job! Why would you volunteer for that?
it was different.
It was different.
Somebody had to do it.
That's a hell of a job to go do because it's different.
Well, for example, one of the dig up. I didn't dig him up. Was Teddy Roosevelt's son.
Oh, wow!
And I dug up one of the few women officers that was killed out there.
Wow!
So anyhow, worked my way back and then took medication for some bad bugs I had gotten on the way out to start the digging, and got that all under control. And at the same time, then they came up with a request for volunteers to do a special assignment that they were getting worried about Russia. So this assignment was a 25-man crew to go around and put emplacements, mines of all major passes and major bridges in all of Alaska.
So you're out.
So I volunteered for that.
Long ago now to become a demolitions expert?
Yeah. And so I started from scratch. I didn't know crap about demolition. And
of course, any volunteer when it comes to bombs, they'll let you go without any pre-qualification.
Well, anyway, so I joined and went. We prepared every major pass and every major bridge in Alaska.
You had them all rigged for bombs.
Well, yeah, you had to dig holes that were 15 feet on the pass side and 25 feet on the cliff side. You had to go down that far and then prepare it to be able to receive charges.
And it was all TNT or nitroglycerin. What kind of charges?
Yeah, we used mostly TNT in those days. They had plenty of surplus at that point. The one memorable thing I was able to do was on the pass leading into Valdez, on the major pass that led into Valdez. I had the center inline hole on the cliff side, so I looked at it, and it was a pretty, as far as I was concerned, pretty weak structure. So I dug a 4.5 foot hole with drills, pneumatic drills and everything, and put in a about 4.5 pounds of TNT and set it off, and the whole inner side of the whole thing came off.
Just off on a big old slab,
everything
huh?
just like this. So now this is of course was a major road time for people leaving Valdez with their trucks. Valdez was a discharge point for all the major stuff coming in, and here I had just closed it. So we had to send in to.
I bet they had some choice words for you.
Oh yes, but we also had some choice words for ourselves because we didn't have to do that crappy work for a while. So anyhow, they sent out a small crew from Anchorage, which had to come clear over to Valdez, and we redid everything and got the trucks going in about 3 days.
Oh, so that's good.
Then after that, at the end of that, I don't know why they liked me, but because I was still I was a T5 in the Air Force Construction Battalion. They asked me. They asked me to take a Jeep and one other person and go back and take photos of all the work we had done, so they'd have relative. They would look like there was nothing there, but there was something there because we knew exactly where everything was.
Did anybody ever go back and pull all these bombs out later on?
No, we didn't put bombs in.
Oh, okay.
You had to have it so you could.
Set the charges.
Put them in right away.
Oh, okay.
So that was a fun assignment because I had the Jeep and one guy, and I had myself, and I was the boss.
And off you went. Off in Alaska countryside.
Well, we got 3/4 of the way done, and the Jeep gave out. So we had to screw around there for about a week till we finally got help and get the job done.
Well, getting the job done has always been your part.
Yeah. Then when I came back, I wasn't in great favor with the sergeant major of my battalion, because I remember he come in on Sunday and wanted me to do something, and I rolled over and told him if he had any brains, he'd take them out and play with them like marbles, which didn't endear him to me. So somehow, all the major battalions had PXs, not where you could go buy beer. And what have you.
Right.
And all of them were having troubles. They couldn't keep their books within 1% of the way they wanted them.
So you volunteered to become a bookkeeper?
So they asked if I would go volunteer to do that. So a man named Bruce Rounds, who was from Boston, and myself took over the PX, and we made a jewel out of it to where everybody was coming out to our PX.
Oh, that's good.
And we kept the books to within less than 1%. But the way we did that was that we for example, we had a helicopter XX-28 radio that we could put, that was on the shelf, and that sold for $36. And if we wanted to balance the books, we could put it in my personal inventory. that took $36 out. Or if we really wanted to do something major, we could take the international carriers for the smoking. They were in double sealed carriers, and they were worth about $120. And so we could take them in or out of the packages and make sure that the books all balanced. And once in a while, they would make a mistake, and if it was in our favor, we could then juggle things that way.
That would be called cooking the books.
And that was a great duty because we also got paid an extra $75 a month, and we got the third week off to go.
About what year was this?
Well, I don't know. I turned 21 when I was on the physical duty of the.
So it'd be about 1949.
No, 49 is when I mustered out.
Okay, so 48.
So anyhow, so we had our extra $75, and we were allowed off to go down to Anchorage where nobody else had any money. So we could live it up.
You can live it up?
Well, we had extra
Right, yeah.
$75.
Well, I'm going to end it right here.
Yeah. So then I mustered out in 49.
Okay, we'll leave it right there. We'll catch you on the next video. Mustering out in 49. Okay.